African legends from as long ago as Kwame Nkrumah have advocated for a united Africa. Steps in alignment to this goal have been made over the years. Welcome to Tunacheki, and today we present the top 10 reasons why Africa will unite in the near future. Remember to subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our African videos. Number 10. Growing Pan-African movement and the emergence of visionaries. Pan-Africanism has historically been about the emancipation of the African continent and all of African descendants the world over from exploitation and oppression. Current notable Pan-Africans include PLO Lumumba, Julius Malema, and Nana Akufo-Addo. Number 9. Africa Development Bank. Following the end of the colonial period in Africa, a growing desire for more unity within the continent led to the establishment of two draft charters, one being for the establishment of a regional development bank. An agreement was co-signed by 23 African governments on August 4, 1963, establishing the African Development Bank. The bank promotes economic development and social progress of its African member countries in Africa and commits approximately $3 billion annually to African countries. Number 8. Return of Africans from the diaspora. Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo recently launched the Year of Return Ghana 2019. The goal of the project is to get African Americans to return to Ghana and have a transformative experience of connecting with the continent from which they were taken 400 years ago. Other African countries are expected to follow suit in a step towards uniting the continent. This will bring Africans who've been away for a long time back home. Number 7. Strengthening of the African Union mandate. One of the objectives of the African Union is to achieve greater unity and solidarity between African countries and Africans. The 1980 Lagos Plan of Action for the Development of Africa and the 1991 Abuja Treaty proposed the creation of regional economic communities as the basis for African integration, with a timetable for the regional and then the continental integration to follow. This mandate has been strengthened over the years. Number 6. The Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Parliament is one of the 9 organs proposed in the 1991 Abuja Treaty establishing the African Economic Community. Its purpose, as set out in Article 17 of the African Union Constitutive Act, is to ensure the full participation of African people in the development and economic integration of the continent. The Parliament is intended as a platform for people from all African states to be involved in discussions and decision-making on the problems and challenges facing the continent. Number 5. Unions like the East Africa Federation. The East African Federation is a proposed political union of the 6 sovereign states of the East African Community as a single federated sovereign state. Member states Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania and Uganda currently form the East African Community. Regional unions like this are the very first steps towards a united Africa in future, as stated in the African Union Mandate. Number 4. Common currency. The African Monetary Union is the proposed creation of an economic and monetary union for the countries of the African Union administered by the African Central Bank. Such a union would call for the creation of a new unified currency similar to the euro. The current plan is to establish an African Economic Community with a single currency by 2023. A common African currency will eliminate the transaction costs customers pay when buying a different currency, make prices of goods and services more transparent and thus more comparable. Number 3. Establishment of the Africa Standby Force and military cooperation. The African Standby Force, ASF, is a continental African and multidisciplinary peacekeeping force with military, police and civilian contingents that act under the direction of the African Union. The Africa Standby Force is to be deployed in times of crisis in Africa. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, serves as the force's headquarters. The force stands as a sign of the greater unification of the continent in future. Number 2. One African Passport. The African Union passport is a common passport document that is set to replace existing nationally issued African Union member state passports and exempt bearers from having to obtain any visas for all 55 states in Africa. It was launched on 17th July 2016 at the 27th Ordinary Session of the African Union. As of June 2018, the passport was planned to be rolled out and ready for use at borders worldwide by 2020. 3 types of African Union passports will be issued: ordinary passport, official or service passport, and diplomatic passport. Number 1. Signing of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. This is the result of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement between all 55 members of the African Union. If ratified, the agreement would result in the largest free trade area in terms of participating countries since the formation of the World Trade Organization. 44 of the 55 members of the African Union signed it. The agreement initially requires members to remove tariffs from 90% of goods, allowing free access to commodities, goods and services across the continent. The proposal will come into force after ratification by 22 of the signatory states. Thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe to get the latest African lists, entertainment, pop culture, and news. Remember to leave your suggestions on topics you'd like us to cover in the comments below.